All right, this video is for Mrs. Vaughn's Algebra 1 class for Wednesday, September 1st. I'm going to do a quick homework review, and then I might go over a couple of things from section 1.1, but there's really not a lot of quiz review I think you guys need. This homework is probably going to cover the majority of the difficult stuff, but we might talk a little bit about sets and notation and that kind of thing. All right, so let's go ahead and start this off. So page 10, numbers 2 through 38. Hopefully you got this done yesterday, or at least before you watch this video. And let's see how you did. So for number 2 and 4, we're asked to graph the points given on a horizontal number line. So for number 2, they gave us C at negative 24 and D at 32. So we do have a negative and a positive. So you would have, usually you would have 0 as the center of your number line when you have negatives and positives. You're definitely going to have it on there somewhere, right? But otherwise, the origin doesn't necessarily have to be in the middle. We'll see this with probably like number 6. You can see I've moved it a little differently. You just need to know that 0 is the origin when you're thinking in terms of absolute value and opposite numbers, which we'll get to in a little bit. All right, so if point C is negative 24, then we have 0, and you don't have to separate these in ones too. You just have to be consistent in the way that you number your number line. So you've got a consistent system from left to right. In this case, because I've got this huge range from negative 24 to 32, I'm not going to go by ones. That's a huge number line. Instead, I've separated my segments by eighths. Because remember, a line is just an infinite number of points. We could talk about any fraction or decimal point between 0 and the next segment, or one segment and another. So I've done it by eighths, so it fits a little bit better because 8 divides evenly into 24, or negative 24 and 32. And so you can see that I move over 1, 2, 3 segments to the left because it's negative for C. So you graph it with a point and a notation, which in this case, it's always going to be your capital letter, excuse me. And then we have D is 32. And because I already have it numbered on my number line, you can see that I go to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4 pips, 4 segments. I put my point on D and then I label it, and you're done. All right, so for number 4, G is 1 3/8. And H is negative 3/4. 3/4. I created this number line by quarters. So you can see I've only labeled my 1, my 2, my negative 1, negative 2. But if you start at 0, you've got 1, 2, 3, and then 4 makes a whole. So you can see that I have these in fourths. Excuse me. So this is like negative 1/4, negative 1/2, negative 3/4, and so on. So when we look at G, 1 3/8, hopefully you guys can see that 3/8 is very close to 4/8, which would be half. So it's not going to be perfectly on the line segment for 1/2, 1 1/2, but it's going to be just a little bit beyond. So G, I'll make this a little bit bigger. You can see what I'm doing. So 1 3/8, so I go positive to the right 1, and then I need to go 1/4 is like 2/8. And then if this might be 4/8. 4/8 we know is the same as 1/2. And so 3/8 is right there in the middle. So this is point G. Okay. Then when we look at H is negative 3/4. Now I do have this in quarters, so you could label all of yours if you needed to. It's negative 1/2, negative 3/4. This one's going to land right on a line segment. So we have negative 3/4 is slightly larger than negative 1. So it's closer to 0 than negative 1. And we put our point there, and then we graph it. All right. So there's 2 and 4. So 6 and 8 are asking us to pretty much do the same thing. We're just doing it on a vertical number line. So I've created 2 vertical number lines. 6, we're given K is negative 4. Let's see where I'm going to put this. I'll put it down here. K equals negative 4. and L equals 1. All right, these are pretty close together, so I just went ahead and labeled each segment as the whole numbers or the whole integers, 1, 2, 3, and then negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So K is -4. Also with vertical number lines, you do typically label your segments on the left and then label your graph on the right. So like you see here, and I think you'll see that when you look at the examples in the book too. All right, and then L was a +1, so point here, L, we're done. Okay, 8, I think we're looking at fractions. Okay, we're looking at decimal points. So again, what I've done here is, this is 2, oh yeah, okay. So 0, and you have 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, and then of course 10, or it's your whole number. So let's make this a little bit bigger so you can see what I'm doing here. So like, for example, this is -0.2, -0.4, I should put a 0 there, -0.6, and this is -0.8, and so on. So again, we're labeling it like we did with the fractions when we did 1/4, 1/3, and these are just slightly different, 2, 4, 6, 8, and then the whole number 1. Okay, so for number 8, P is -0.7. So you have 0.6 as your line segment here and 0.8 as your line segment here. So right there in the center, that's our -0.7. So we'll label that as P. And then Q is 1.2. Why did I label that so weird? I don't know. Let's fix that. That's a 1. It's so early. Okay. So with Q being 1.2, just write this, P equals -0.7, Q equals 1.2. All right, so we find our 1, and then we go up 1 line segment to 1.2. It's right there, and we'll label it Q. And that's it. Come on, there we go. All right, so for 12 through, is it really just 3? Okay, 10, there it is, 10, 12, 14, and 16. Do that weird. We need to state the coordinate of each point. So for, in your graph, they've given you R, S. Did they put the points there too? I hope they did on y'all's. S is here. T is here. V is here. W and U. And then on the vertical one, we have, what did I, Y? Oh, I see what I did. Z, X, and what's that one? -1. Right here is Y. Okay. So number 10 asked us for S. Hopefully you saw that S is, theirs looks a little more in the middle than mine does, but that's a 1.5. You can also write it as 1.5, either way, same thing. All right, number 12 is asking for U. If we look over here, U is right on 20, so easy enough. And 14, W. W, you should be able to see, because they've labeled every other one, that this is -5, -10, -15, -20. So these segments are in lengths of 5. So W is -5. And last one is 16Y. What is Y? All right, so, oops, Y, so you have 0, and then you have one segment, and then you have -1. So the difference, the median between 0 and -1, or sorry, the midpoint is 1/2. So if you want, you can label that as -1/2, which means that halfway between half and whole, or 0.5 and 1, is 3/4. So you could write y as either -0.75 or -3/4. Either way, same thing. Okay. 18 and 20 are asking us to state the opposite. So here we're talking about opposite numbers. So 18 gives us the number 17, whose opposite is -17. Why can't I write that? Right, because remember, opposite is talking about signs, positive and negative. So if you have a positive number, its opposite is that same number with a negative, and vice versa. 20 is -1/3, whose opposite is +1/3. Not 13, Meredith. There we go. Okay, and then 22 and 24 are asking for absolute value. So remember, absolute value is talking about the distance from the origin. What is the origin? It is 0. So distance from 0. Shouldn't do that. We deal with the null sets right now. Different distance from 0. All right, 22 gives us the absolute value of -2. If you look on a number line, you have 0, -1, -2, -3, whatever. Look at your distance between segments, 1, 2. It's still +2, it just happens to be 2 steps to the left. So that's why your answer is a +2. All right, 24 is the absolute value of -1/2, which is 1/2. Because just because you're moving a half step to the left doesn't mean you're not moving a half a step. So absolute value is positive. Okay. Excuse me. All right, perform the indicated operations. 26 gives us the absolute value of 18 plus 27. So again, when you have mathematical operations inside grouping symbols, which the absolute value is, you solve inside first, then you take care of the grouping symbol. You interact it with anything else, which in this case, there's nothing. Decrement. You do that second. Okay. All right. So let's solve 18 plus 27. Y'all, my brain. Okay, so that's 15, carry my 1, so 45. Well, the absolute value of +45 is just 45. But do those steps so you can see the process. Because if it was negative, you would have a completely different answer. Or sorry, if it was negative, you would have the same answer, but you might accidentally give yourself the wrong answer. Anyway, 28. 28 gives us the absolute value of 12.46 minus 3.89. All right, so again, same thing. Do the inside of your grouping symbol first, then solve the grouping symbol. And don't be proud, y'all. Rewrite this whatever way makes it easier for you to solve it correctly. Pride cometh before a fall. That's easy way to make careless errors. So just lay it out. 16 take away. So this becomes a 3. This becomes a 16. 16 take away 9 is 7. Can't take away 8 from 3. So this becomes, I'm just going to take the whole thing. And this becomes 13. 13 take away 8 is 5. Decimal place stays in the same place when you're adding and subtracting. And then 11 take away 3 is 8. So we end up with the absolute value of a positive 8.57. And because it's positive, it stays the same. And that's our solution. We just moved 8.57 steps to the right. So, but always still positive. Okay. Moving on, number 30. So we have -9 plus the absolute value of -4. Again, think of your order of operation. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. P is first. They say P because it's parentheses, but that means grouping symbol. An absolute value is a grouping symbol. So you do this guy and this guy. Ooh, that was bad. First. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve those. The absolute value of -9 is 9, plus the absolute value of -4, which is 4. And hopefully you ended up with a solution of 13, because that's the correct answer. Okay, so again, whole thing second. All right, 32. Absolute value of -86 minus the absolute value of 10. All right, same deal. Solve your grouping symbols first, order of operation. So absolute value of -86 is 86, absolute value of 10 is 10, and you find that your solution is 76, or your difference there. All right, 34. Oh, yay, fractions. -2/7. Absolute value of -2/7 minus the absolute value of 2/7. Oh, well, at least they made it easy for us, right? Because we got to get rid of our absolute value first, because grouping symbol. And so we end up with absolute value of -2/7 is 2/7, and absolute value of 2/7 is 2/7, and 2/7 minus 2/7 is 0. All right. 36. Okay, this is different. All right, a segment. Oh, okay, we're doing the midpoint and the oh, that other thing. Let's look at this. Okay, so let's get our formulas on here. The length of a segment on a number line is the absolute value of point B minus point A. And the formula for midpoint is pretty much like how you would find average. It's the two coordinates added together and then divided by 2. Okay, so let's look at what we have here. So for 36, we have 137 and 259. Now, I would call these A and B. All right, so when we find the length, we take B, which is 259, minus A, which is 137. And I'm absolutely using a calculator, so this doesn't take forever. And we have 259 minus 137 gives us a length with an absolute value of 122. Or absolute value of 122, which is 122. Let's check something really quick. What if we did it the other way? What if we did the absolute value of 137 minus 259? Just curious. Well, then we would get the length is negative 122, which when you're doing the absolute value of a negative number is 122. That's why the absolute value is so important when you're looking at the length of a line segment, because your answer needs to be the same. And if you're using absolute value, it will be. Okay. All right. So the segment has endpoints for the given coordinates. Find the length and the midpoint. Okay. So we went ahead and found the length. Same answer, no matter what way you did it. So let's go ahead and find the midpoint. So the midpoint equals A. Again, doesn't matter which order you do it in. I just like to do the first one A and the second one B, plus 259 divided by 2. So 137 plus 259 gives us 6, 7, 8, 9, 396 divided by 2. 2 goes into 3. Just put it down here. 2 goes into 3 one time with 1 left over. So 2 goes into 19 9 times with 1 left over. And then 2 goes into 16 8 times. So your midpoint is 198. Is that right? I didn't even look. 5. Yeah, 122 is your length. I'll just do the whole thing here. And your midpoint is 198. Yes, that's correct. Well, I'm sure glad since I just recorded myself doing that. All right, 38 is 102 and 15. All right, so length equals, just gonna do it this way. Absolute value of 102 minus 15. Length equals 2 minus 5. 2 minus 5 is 7. Should be 87, right? Yep, 87. Well, the absolute value of 87 is just 87. All right, now midpoints. So we take midpoint equals 102 plus 15 divided by 2. So 102 plus 15 is 117 divided by 2. So we're going to have a decimal here because 2 goes into 11 5 times with 1 left over, but 7 is odd. So 2 goes into 17 8 times with 1 left over. I'm just going to put a 0 there so you can see where I'm going here. So there was 1 left over. 2 goes into 10 5 times. So our midpoint is 58 and a half. Okay. And is that as far as we went? I think so. Where's my, yeah, 2 through 38 even. Okay. All right, so really quick, the only review that I want to do besides what we already did with the homework is to, again, talk about our symbols. So what does that mean? That means the same as this, or empty, set, null, set, either way, right? It means we have a set with nothing in it. The set exists as a subset of every other set. But remember, a subset, oh gosh, I hope I'm not confusing geometry and algebra here. Because we still talked about subsets. Set. Yeah, okay, we did good. A subset cannot be an element. Remember that, that's important. A subset can't be an element of another subset, but a subset can be a subset of another set. Okay, sorry. All right, our symbol for element, since we're already on that topic. Element is this kind of weird looking E. So elements are inside a set. So if we have set A with our curly brackets, then you have one element here, one element here, one element here. And if it's an infinite set, then that's what it looks like. You know, so you could have 1, 2, 3. But 1, 2, and 3, and any number inside that set, those are elements of set A. And then subset, that's a symbol for a subset. So we know that natural numbers are a subset of whole numbers. Whole numbers are a subset of integers. And integers are a subset of, lost it, rational numbers. Right? Okay. And then rational numbers, we'll just throw that in there. Rational numbers are a subset of real numbers. Okay. Yeah. And you should all sort of have that Venn diagram where we talked about the numbers. Let's talk about union. So remember, you have the symbol for union, which is like a large U with no tail, union. So the union of two sets is all elements. Let's see, it's made up. Let's try this again. A set containing, all elements of given sets. Right? Union is marriage, everything from the wife and everything from the husband go into the house. But if they both have the full DVD director's cut edition of Lord of the Rings, they're going to sell one and keep one, right? So you don't duplicate them. So they don't have doubles, but they do have everything that they came with. And then you have intersection, which is a set containing the elements in both given sets. Right, so it's only the elements that match. It's only the elements that are common that are going to be in an intersection. So a union is going to be probably a larger collection of elements, whereas an intersection is going to be smaller, unless they're infinite. And then it gets a little weird. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's the big thing. The only other thing is, of course, to remember natural, whole, integer. This is not awful considering my drawing skills, right? Know your definitions of what are natural numbers, what are whole numbers, what are integers, what are rational, what are irrational. And then this whole big guy is all of the real numbers. Okay. All right, that's it. That's all I got for today. Feel free to go ahead and take your quiz if you're ready. And I'll have another video for y'all starting section 1.3 as soon as possible. Thanks. Talk to you later.